Hi, everybody. We are a minute from going live on the Stigma-Free Society Facebook event. Don't just survive and thrive with Daniel To. You'll see my guest is already on. Just do a little bit of dancing. I don't think Vanessa's going to dance, but that's okay. That's just my thing, really. Yeah. And we're just
Yeah,
waiting for
this
2
is your
o'clock.
theme song.
Yeah, that's right. And so you got one viewer. See, this is the way. I always joke about like the people not viewing at 2 o'clock, but
Yeah.
that's just the way it goes. But so happy to have everyone who either is watching live right now or will watch it later on YouTube, on Stigma Free Society's YouTube channel, or on their Facebook page. I know a lot of people watch afterwards. We also send things out on the school district mental health webpage, and we're going to be doing some links to that as well. So just so glad to have all of you here. I'm Daniel To. I'm a district principal in Ed Services in the Surrey School District. Here is my information that I share every single time I'm on. You can email me. There's also the live chat that's happening right now. So if you want to ask questions, hi, Maddie, how's it going? Vanessa, I think I told you, Maddie, people don't know this. So people are now going to learn this in the internet world. Maddie, who works with Stigma Free, has the same name as my daughter, Maddie. And we also used to go, like, they both danced at the same studio. And apparently we all went to the same church. So small, such a small world. And she went to the same high school that my wife went to. So Maddie, obviously, it's meant to be that
Meant
I'm
to
working
be.
with Stigma. Yeah, totally meant to be. And so if you want to text questions to my cell phone, I think I have my text up somewhere. And also you can go to Twitter also, although I can't read it now. And also these videos are available on my blog as well on my website. So hi, Andrea. How's it going? Andrea is the CEO at Vanessa of
Hi,
Stigma Free
Andrea.
Society. Awesome human being. Just moved back to the island. I see pictures of her on her balcony all the time, having so much fun with her husband up there looking at just. Oh, you're from the island. You worked on the island, Vanessa,
I
right?
did work on the island. Yeah.
Yeah, you were on the radio there as well. So I'm sure. And Danielle Law. See, your friend Danielle from Professor Danielle Law is also on here. Professor, good to see you there. So we are going to be speaking, and I'm not going to take up too much of her time. Vanessa's known me all my life, so she knows, well, I've known her all her life, one of the two, because I'm a lot older, but she knows I just randomly talk. And so I don't want to, I could technically take up all of her time without actually introducing her, so I'm not going to do that. But we are so happy to chat with Vanessa Chiu today, and I'm just looking at my screen over here, but I don't need to because it's right in front of my face. Her website is vanessachiu.com, and her podcasts are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podbean. She just started it. She's on her 3rd episode, I believe, and it's fantastic. So I encourage all of you to check out her podcast and to just listen to what Vanessa has to say there. Just short snippets, 4, 5, 7 minutes. Not going to take too much of your day, and she's so wise for her young age. She's also on 93.7 JR Country, right? On the weekend as the 7 to 2 host, correct?
As the 10 to 4 host now.
Oh, that's not 7 to 2 at all. That's completely wrong. Okay, so that's the 10 to 4 host. So if you're into country music and you want to, and you're like in your car driving, turn into 93.7 JR Country. So without any further ado, I'm going to shrink my screen so we can actually see more of Vanessa. And today we're here to talk about mental health. And we're really here to talk about, I've known Vanessa all of her life, and she has, by the way, I forgot to even do my disclaimer. I work for the Surrey School District. Everything I'm going to say is about that. But anyways, we're here to talk to Vanessa today. And Vanessa, I've known her all her life, and she's always been a high achiever, a go-getter. I promised I wouldn't share any funny stories, but she's always been just like a really energetic human being, musical, can do acting, great in school. She studied to be a teacher, but then moved on to radio, and I think and into media actually, not just radio now, but you're going to be doing some television and you do done some improv. Following your career has been the joy of my life. Having watched you grow up and knowing your family. And so today we're going to talk about our mental health, and I'm going to prompt Vanessa with some questions. But if you just don't ignore my questions, that's totally fine. You can just keep talking, and that's totally fine because you are the media personality, and I'm just a random guy talking on video. So, are you ready to go? You ready?
Yeah, ready.
Okay, all right. So Vanessa, just having known you, and we've sort of lost touch for a little bit when you moved to the island because it was hard to keep in touch when and I had kids and everything. But my wife and I have been so interested in your journey, both when we met you as a child and through high school, and now when you journeyed as a university student to a teacher, and then you went on radio and a broadcaster. And in your first podcast, you talk about what you learned about yourself during quarantine and during COVID-19, and you did a lot of self-reflection and a lot of, oh, what is happening in life, in my life, and like, just tell us about that and walk through your journey and talk about some of the mental health issues that you faced as you walk that journey.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for asking me to be on your live stream with Stigma-Free Society. It was such a nice surprise to hear from you and ask me to come on with you. Really appreciate it. And yeah, so I used to be a teacher, and then I went into radio broadcasting, which I'm still doing now. And it was actually something that you said, Daniel. You said to me a long time ago, like, you should be on the radio because you have a really great voice. And I never really thought about actually going to school for radio. Like, I didn't know you could do that. And but when I went to BCIT for the program, I loved it, and I thought it was a different and a really fun challenge for me. And I'm still doing it now. So yeah, and I think in terms of mental health, and especially during quarantine, you know, since March until like now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I think I had a chance to really think about and reflect on what I wanted to do and my purpose and my life and the direction that I want to take. And I think two of the things that I realized during COVID was one, that I can't control what other people think of me. So I used to have a huge fear, and this is even like pre-COVID, like self-reflection, pre-quarantine and pre-COVID, huge fear of people judging me and what they think of me and what they're going to think of my decisions, and if I do this or if I do that, or if I don't do this, if I don't do that. Yeah. And that really destroys your self-confidence and self-esteem. And I think I had thought, you know, was worried so much about what other people thought of me that I wasn't aware, and I wasn't really paying attention to myself anymore, and it was more about other people. So I think, in quarantine, I really, you know, sat down and thought, it doesn't matter what other people think of me and what I'm doing, because people are going to judge me anyway, right?
Yeah. Well, like, where do you think that comes from, though? And it's interesting you would choose teaching and radio as the professions, having that almost that fear, right? A lot of us fear people judging us, but I can tell you, and you've seen it in teaching, you're being judged by 30 to 40 people every day. In high school, 120 people every day. In radio, you're literally being judged, and your job depends on what people think of your performance, not what you think, what others think. So why did you choose these professions? If that was like almost sometimes maybe like a fear that sort of inhibited some of the things that you wanted to do?
I chose to go into teaching first because I really enjoyed working with kids. Like, my focus was elementary education, and you know, we grew up together in church, right? Like you've seen me work with kids like my entire life.
So good,
and that's something that I really enjoyed. So I thought, you know, what else am I going to do with my English degree?
That's what I do with my English degree.
So I felt that teaching was at that time the best decision for me that I could take, you know, for post-secondary and what my focus should be. But it wasn't until after I was done my bachelor's in education that I was like, actually, I don't think I'm as passionate about teaching in a classroom as I thought I was. I still really enjoy working with kids, but maybe not in that capacity, right? Maybe not in the school capacity. So I ended up going into radio at BCIT, which I loved, and it was something different and unique. And there is a little bit of that performance aspect as well that I have come to really love.
Yeah.
And I mean, I still, like pre-COVID, I really enjoyed, working with like big brothers and big sisters and being a big teacher and a mentor. And so, yeah, I still really love working with kids, just not in a school setting.
Yeah.
And yeah.
But what, like, did you not find some of the fear of being judged did you find that inhibit any of your decisions as you went from teaching to radio to anything else to like
Yeah.
did you feel that you were hindered when you had those fears? Because you're telling you just realized some of this stuff during COVID and maybe a little bit before as you sort of branched out into improv and all those things. Did you feel hindered for a part of your life because of those things?
Definitely. And I think a lot of it also has to do with growing up in church, right? We're taught to behave a certain way, and act a certain way. And I really felt like going into teaching was like, it's safe, right? It's a safe route. It's like I have a lot of friends who are teachers as well and who are still teachers who I really admire. But, after stepping back and looking at, is this really what I want to do? Is this my passion? Or am I just doing this because a lot of other people are doing it and it seems like a great job? And so for sure, thinking about what other people thought of me and my decisions moving from teaching to radio, certainly I definitely had that in the back of my head. Like, am I going to disappoint my family? Like, am I going to disappoint my parents because I'm totally changing my career? And I'm like, some people probably think that I wasted my schooling, which I don't think I have. But yeah, there are people who think that, right? That I wasted my education and all that time in post-secondary school. And I think also it comes with years of experience with talking in front of people and talking in a room with nobody, on radio. And I'm being judged all the time. Like, listeners probably judge me all the time. And but there's really nothing I can do about what other people think of me. I can't control what other people think or how they act, what their decisions are. I can only focus on what I can do for me, my thoughts, my actions, my decisions.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, and this maybe leads into the second question. I've asked like 7 of them already, but here's the second question. In your second podcast, you talk about embracing change. And this is definitely one of the hardest things for people to do. And you've had to do that a few times now. And something that really embracing change and change really affects people's mental health. Like, if you're not able to embrace change well, you can be in a depression or be in a bad state for a very long time. Can you talk about your change journey? And you've spoken a little bit about that now, and how you grew to become mentally resilient to be able to embrace change. Because you talk about that in your podcast. And I think, having come from, actually, we grew up together, so Asian families, there's very high expectations. It's not a stereotype. This is actually what it is. You have very high expectations, and going to radio is there's not many people that do that, right? And you went to school for something else. And how did you embrace that change and sort of ignore what other people are thinking and just sort of live your life for yourself?
I think a lot of it has to do with mindset. And definitely following, this is going to sound so cheesy and lame, but following your heart and following your passion. I think it's so important to just be passionate about what you're doing and believe what you're doing is right for you and it's the best for you. You can only be honest with yourself, right? Like, you know yourself the best.
That's right.
So, and I think change is sometimes really difficult. And I really, really struggled with change a lot when I was in my 20s. It just
dive into that. Dive in.
Well, it's just, I think I focused very much on change being something that's ending. Right? Like, if I think about like jobs that I've had or even relationships, right?
Yeah.
And if those things are changing and evolving, sometimes those things end, right? And
Yeah.
I think thinking about things that are ending was just a focus for me before. Now I'm thinking about change, like, yes, something is ending, but it's also new beginnings as well.
Okay.
And I really feel like, for me personally, the hardest times that I've been through, and no matter how painful those experiences were, like losing jobs that I've loved, relationship heartbreaks, those are the times where I have been able to grow the most and learn the most, and accept and welcome that change, because I know I'm going to grow as a person, because I'm going through those hard times. I'm going to learn stuff that I didn't know before, right?
Something's really loud in my street. Hold on, let me. There you go. Yeah, you didn't learn before, so you know that you're going to grow.
Yeah, so I think thinking about change in terms of learning and growing and becoming a better me, because I think I'm always going to be evolving as well, right? So I just have been really focusing on flipping my mindset, I think, from seeing change as a negative thing, which made me extremely anxious. Like I was very anxious about change before, and I lost sleep over it, and it was super stressful. And but now I'm like, okay, if I'm super stressed about it, what can I do now to alleviate some of that stress, and embrace that change as a good thing, or see the positives in change?
So this is a question I thought of for myself a lot. So I'm going to ask you the same thing, because we grew up together. I'm actually quite curious. This is more of a Daniel and Vanessa catch-up session, actually, and everyone gets to watch it. Do you find that your new perspective jives with how you grew up? I have many different perspectives now on poverty, and on, I mean, you knew how I grew up, so I didn't probably have a perspective at all on vulnerable youth, at-risk youth, poverty, working with vulnerable populations, and my perspective changed. But I find that actually brought my life, my personal faith beliefs, my family beliefs, everything, brought everything into sync. And I didn't find that those things went against anything I believed in at all. Maybe I'm a little bit liberal as a Christian person. I am not very, very conservative, and maybe that's why I made it jive. But do you find that your new perspective on things jives with your family values and maybe your faith values and all those things? Like, is everything sort of meshing together now, and you feel in sync, or do you feel there's still some parts that you got to sort out?
For me, yes. The first part of your question, I would say it did not sync up with with what we were taught, and just the Chinese culture, and
no,
you know,
like, Chinese culture. Yeah, totally. I totally get it.
Yeah. Like it. I mean, we don't. we don't really talk about mental health.
No,
you
no,
know,
not at all.
it's not a thing.
No.
So I think now that I'm really reflecting on myself, and my values and beliefs have really grown and expanded, and
awesome.
I would say that I'm a lot more liberal as well, but I feel like I'm in sync with myself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I don't think we're called to be out of sync. I don't think we're created that way. I don't think we are meant to live that way. And sometimes culture in and of itself can be both liberating but also restricting, right? Yes. And when you went through this change, I mean, like, I know the rest of your family, I probably know how you're going to answer, but how did your family react to you being in radio and making all these changes, and now being out on TV? And I preface this by saying, I know your mom listens to you all the time, and I know she does not like country music. So, so I know she listens to you like religiously. So like talk about your parents and your family and how they've been during this for you.
You know, my parents have actually been super supportive through all of my changes with my career, especially, and just with school and everything. And I think they just really want me to love what I'm doing, and I do love what I'm doing. And like side note, I got let go from my full-time radio job at the end of 2018, which was really devastating for me because it was unexpected. Right? But now it's like, okay, a lot of change, right? Now I'm going to have to think about, what am I going to do next? But that really allowed me to explore and expand my knowledge again and get into acting and get into voice acting, get into improv and writing comedy, sketch comedy, which I'd never done before. And and it was just like, I just loved those things so much. And I still really love those things. And I just think it's a great challenge. And my parents and my brother have been super supportive. Like, I think they see me thriving in those areas. Because I love it so much. And because I'm so passionate about those things.
That's great. And you're not just surviving, you're thriving. See, that's the name of the show. And I'm just going to ask you the final question. We have 10 minutes, and I just want to point quickly to the chat. Maddie and Andrea have said just wonderful things there about how Maddie has a similar experience. Do you see the chat? I don't even know what you see on the other side. Do you see the chat?
I don't see it. I don't see it.
So Maddie says, oh my gosh, same thing happened to me. Completed my bachelor's degree in education this April. Was going to French immersion. Now she's working for Stigma-Free. Something changed, right? She's doing mental health. It's in the health field. And Andrea is right. She goes, I understand people judging. You're so right. It doesn't matter because haters going to hate, right? Haters going to hate. If someone's going to be up against you, what can you do? You can't change them. So you just got to keep on going and doing your thing. Never let anyone tear you away from you, what you love. And she's saying that to you. So if you can't see that, she said that to you. My final question is, on your final podcast, you talk about gratefulness. I love that. I listened to that 3 times, just so you know, I'm not just saying it. I listened to it 3 times. And from your perspective, what role do you think gratitude and gratefulness has in helping in terms of being positive and embracing situations and embracing that come what may attitude, gratefulness and come what may? How are they related? Did you always have that gratefulness perspective, or did that just did something shift for you to make you more grateful about everything?
Definitely this year has made me more grateful for the situation I'm in. Just like 2020 has been a poo-poo show for lack of a better term.
Totally. I want to swear on Andrea's website. Yes.
Yeah. But I definitely, just in general, have been more grateful as I've gotten older, right? Like, I think as kids, you don't, like, you just think that it's the way things are, and it's, I think as kids, you don't see the bigger picture. But as I grow older and I've grown into an adult and working a career and all that stuff, it's just like, I need to be more grateful for what I have. And I think now, especially this year, I've been really cognizant about what info and what knowledge I'm letting pass my gates, because I think it's been so easy to go down that rabbit hole of negativity, right? Like, it's so easy because it's just like everywhere these days, right? But I think that I've been really trying to focus on, okay, is that negative info and news and knowledge, is that helping me be grateful? And is that helping me, express my gratitude? Is it helping me learn and grow? Maybe not. I just, for me personally, I think focusing on being grateful for what I have and how things are has been good for me, because I find myself less stressed and less anxious as well. Just less anxiety overall.
And the other people listening people are definitely identifying with the situation. What news do you let pass your gates? I'm curious. I've never heard anyone say that recently anyways. I've heard people say, I don't watch CNN or something, but no one said, like, really controlling the information past your gates. Like, how do you even do that? What does that even, how would you avoid Twitter and the news? And it's Bonnie Henry,
it's tough, right? Like, I think, being informed is one thing, but being overwhelmed and flooded with news is another thing. I think, as being part of my job as a radio host is being in the know, right? Like, I gotta know what's going on locally and in the community. And but I'll for myself, I'll just get to know just enough what's going on there, right? Like I'm not gonna do a deep dive into, you know, all this other stuff that's happening. Like I know enough to know what's going on or here and around the world. But yeah, just the endless scrolling, I stop myself.
Interesting. So you on social media, do you not just keep on scrolling? Do you not look at the random news articles? Do you like what do you do for social media? Like, again, this is more advice to those who are watching. Danielle Law, by the way, says you're not a baby anymore, but I think she said baby, so maybe she's referring to me as well, but I'm older than her, so I don't know. She goes, you're not babies anymore. Love the great questions and wise answers. I think she's referring to your wise answers. Like, what do you, if you were to give advice to someone out there, and we only have another 5 minutes, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe in a similar mind frame as you and wants to control them? Like, what do you control? What do you see? How do you stay connected if you don't scroll?
Yeah. Well, I still stay connected, right? Like I still get like news updates on my phone and stuff, but I've also unsubscribed from a lot of things. So I'm not getting them 24/7 because it really makes me so anxious, and then it makes me angry when I see like the COVID numbers going up and stuff, and I'm like, okay, again, like I can only control me and my actions, and that I'm keeping safe, and then I'm keeping other people safe when I go out to grocery shop or whatever, right? It's like I really have to be mindful and aware of just how much time I'm spending, and not just how much time, but like what is it that I'm consuming?
Right? Okay. Awesome. Well, I don't know if anybody online has any questions for Vanessa, but we are coming to the close. Do you have any final words of wisdom for anybody watching? We have people watching from everywhere eventually, maybe not right now, but we do have 6 people, which is awesome. One of them is Danielle. But do you have any just final parting thoughts before I go back to the screen where it shows your podcast and all those things? Any final thoughts?
I just hope that people can stay well during this time, even though we're like kind of, you know, things are opened up and everything. I just hope that people can take care of their mental health in whatever way they can. Because I always say to, you know, I've been saying to my friends this whole past year that I feel like everyone needs therapy. And if everyone took care of their mental health, then the world would be a way better place.
Do you encourage things like counseling, like therapy? Do you think those are good things?
I do, yeah. I mean, I have a therapist. Yeah, I'm not gonna be ashamed to say that. I love my therapist. She is amazing. And it's just find a good support system. Find a good support system is really important. Whether it's your chosen family or your real family or your extended family or whatever.
Well, that's really brave. You know, to be quite honest, it's actually. You might not think so now because you've said it on the radio and here and on a podcast. But admitting to even needing a therapist, a lot of people find that a hard thing to admit. Admitting to need help, admitting to needing to reach out for their mental health is a hard thing for people. But that is, it sounds again cheesy. It sounds like I'm like talking to you in some sort of meeting, but that is the first step. Admitting you need the help, admitting that talking to someone is good. That's always the first step. I have trusted friends and a wife that I confide in all the time, and without that I'd probably be like banging my head against the wall trying to go, I don't know what's happening, and so thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I do run into your parents from time to time, and your brother, because he's my dentist, and just know, and I'm sure they tell you this all the time, but we're Asian, so maybe don't tell you all the time, but they are very proud of you. They talk about you all the time. They're proud of the work that you're doing. They're like, hey, did you see Vanessa on that show where she was blurry? I'm like, I did, but she was blurry at the time. Right? And watching your comedy sketches, I am proud. It sounds sort of trite and condescending. Hopefully not. You don't take it that way, but I am proud of seeing you become the person that you've become, having known you from like birth till now. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with everybody here and everybody who will watch later on YouTube and on Facebook. Again, look at the slide. This is where you can find Vanessa's podcast and look for her in any upcoming shows that she may be auditioning for. And also listen to her on JR 93%, 93%. That's very Asian of me to say a percentage of some sort of grade. 93.7 JR Country FM. And just again, follow Vanessa. She has so much wisdom to impart for such a young person, and I have confidence that you listen to her podcast and follow her on the radio, that you can grow as a person and learn a lot from her. So Vanessa, thank you. You're still teaching, even though you're not officially a licensed teacher on the radio, but you're still teaching a lot of people, and just want to know you appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank
So
you
we're
for
not,
having me.
but unlike the radio, we don't cut off. You're still on the screen, Vanessa. Don't do anything weird while I talk about. Just make sure if you want to contact me, we're going to be on again in 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about, just give you guys a preview. We're going to be talking, it's going to be a two-parter. The first part's going to be on Stigma-Free's Facebook Live, and the second part's going to be on our Surrey School District's Mental Health YouTube Live webpage. We're going to talk about children and the changes that they've had to overcome, and the anxiety and the issues that they've had to overcome during COVID-19, and some of the personality changes and some of the coping mechanisms that children may or may not be using right now in school, and how to help your kids as they go through this new normal. And we're going to really dive down and focus on that. The first episode on Stigma Free, we're going to talk to Coralie Kirby, who's actually my co-host on our district mental health website, but she's a school psychologist, and we're going to deep dive into how kids are surviving and thriving during COVID-19 and some of the issues they might be facing. And then we're going to talk to an art therapist on the Surrey Mental Health website, YouTube Live website, and talk to her about art and art therapy, and that role it has to play to help kids adjust and adapt to this new normal of ours. So stay tuned for that. Information is going to come out on that. But if you have any questions or comments, please email me, text me, Twitter me, and all those good things. I try not to scroll also, because I get angry at the news, and sometimes I want to throw my phone out the window, and that's an expensive thing to do. Thank you, everybody. And again, Vanessa, thank you so much for coming on. Hope to have you on again, but thank you again, and appreciate everyone listening to her podcast. Again, I'll end off this with this. There you go. And we are going. Oh, I always have trouble with my music. Bye, Andrea, Danielle, Maddie, and everyone else who was on. We end the podcast now. Appreciate you all listening. Thank you for tuning in. Check out the Stigma-Free Facebook page, website, and their YouTube channel. Subscribe to everything. Have a great day, everybody. See you later.